Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedar Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of January 10th to January 16th. I am your host, Aaron Spears.
And I'm Dave Huffman, Director of Marketing for Cleveland Cinemas. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing 1917 and Just Mercy.
But before we get into the movies and the news this week, we always like to give you a good recommendation. Our movie of the week pick for this week. What is your recommendation, Dave?
Well, since we're just starting off the new year, I wanted to just tell everybody that I rang in the new year the best way possible with a disaster movie marathon, which culminated in a perfectly timed playing of the Poseidon adventure. So that right at midnight, whenever it's midnight in the movie and the boat's about to flip over, spoiler alert, in case you don't know what the movie is. We rang in the new year just as they're, ringing the new year on the boat, and then disaster strikes. So I've been wanting to do that for years, and I finally just did it. So it was a fun way to celebrate the new year with some friends. And if you have not seen the Poseidon adventure, it's amazing how well that movie holds up. I mean, it's like dated, cheesy 70s costumes and stuff, but the production design in that movie is still kind of unparalleled, and it is incredibly entertaining. It's just such a great film. So I could watch. I don't even know how many times I've seen Poseidon Adventure over my life, but it still entertains me, and I can't recommend it enough.
What else to say? Also, if you've only seen Poseidon, you need to go watch Poseidon Adventure.
Yes.
Because,
even though when they announced that they were remaking Poseidon Adventure and Steve Guttenberg was going to be in it, I was so excited. I'm like, this is like the perfect Dave Huffman movie. Thank you, Hollywood. And then I watched it, and I was like, damn you, Hollywood.
Yeah, it's almost like that was predictable outcome for for that movie.
Yeah, but I like whenever two of my obsessions,
collide,
meld together. Yeah. That's always fun, but I take that back. It's not always fun. So yeah,
the potential for fun is there.
The potential for fun was it was quite, the build up to that was the exciting part, and then what a letdown.
So you rang in the new year with the Poseidon countdown. You missed BTS performing live in Times Square as the rest of America was watching the year rung in.
Yeah, I was singing along with "There's Got to Be a Morning After," the Oscar-winning song. So yeah, no. And what's your movie recommendation for this first week in 2020?
Well, it's an old recommendation, but not as old as what you're recommending, insofar as I'm still catching up with some of those movies that I'm on that list right now of catching up from 2019 of the movies that friends of mine won't shut up about that I still haven't seen. So the most recent one that I saw that I would recommend is actually Knives Out. We just watched that 2 nights ago. I was having great flashbacks because Rian Johnson, was Brick his first movie? Or at least his first distributed feature.
I'm aware of,
An early film, we'll say, of Rian Johnson's Brick, played at the Cedar right when I started, so I always have like a special place in my heart for that movie and Rian Johnson, just because he comes from the world of American indies and all that. Not a big Star Wars guy, so I wasn't too interested in his last movie. But Knives Out, going back, cashing in that cachet of doing a big studio movie, it looked like Clue, but new. Yeah. And I was I'm like, well, what's the hook here? Because he loves a good story. You can just tell the guy just loves telling a really well-constructed story. And, of course, that's exactly what you give with Knives Out. It was such a perfectly paced, it's like an Agatha Christie script that just, never got made somehow. Right. It's just, you take out one scene and not the rest of them just don't work anymore. So it was one of those, it was just a lot of fun to watch. But then, even as we were talking about it, going through the plot to it, I was surprised how that meant that and that meant this, and it was such a perfect puzzle of a movie that you if you had a question, somebody else that was paying better attention to you that caught this one detail filled in your question with an answer, not just made up, the Force did it, or the usual plot hole devices.
It is such a smart, fun, entertaining movie. I loved it. I've seen it twice. Yeah. We actually didn't open it at the Cedar back whenever it first opened up around Thanksgiving because we just didn't have time.
Right.
And then this week, or didn't have space for it. I mean, not that we didn't have time.
Right.
And this week, though, on the 3rd, we had sort of a hole to fill. So I was like, hey, let's finally open up Knives Out here. Because and thank goodness we did, because it did extremely well. It was actually, I think, our number 2 movie this weekend at the Cedar Lee. So you could tell that the Cedar Lee fans were waiting for us to play it. So it was great to see everybody come out and support it. And if you haven't seen it yet, I think it actually has an outside chance of even getting some surprise Oscar nominations that people were kind of underestimating the appreciation for it. I think it could end up like sneaking into Best Picture because so many people love that movie. And the way the Oscars work, if so many people, you have to rate it as your top movie to get it. You know, a certain percentage of films have to be rated number 1 to be nominated. So it could end up slipping in there.
It's been on a lot of, even like the more film geeky ones, like the lists in Film Comment when they survey like worldwide critics. It's popping up in a number of those lists too, because it's just a really well-crafted movie that each individual role, like they have unique voices. They're very well acted. It does have that. Did it have that scare? I can't remember if we addressed this on the show or not. Did it have that scare that you have sometimes when there's a really stacked cast going into a movie and you're like, oh God, why did they have to do that?
You know how I feel about that. Yeah. Anytime there's too many named people in a movie, I'm always nervous, unless it's like an iconic director like Woody Allen or someone like that. Then you go, oh, everyone just wants to work with him. Right. Maybe Rian Johnson's like that now.
Maybe he's at that point now. I hope he is.
I loved Don Johnson. I thought was fantastic in the movie. Probably Daniel Craig is great, but I think Don Johnson might be my favorite part of the movie. I just really enjoyed him and his character. So, and Jamie Lee Curtis, everyone in the movie is just kind of perfectly cast and does a great job.
So I'd watched the movie with Kelly, and she hasn't seen Logan Lucky, which I've seen a couple times. And so when Daniel Craig starts talking in Knives Out, she was like, what is he? That's James Bond, right? I was like, yeah, he's done this before, but you could just tell, like, there's every character or every actor in the movie too just seemed like they were having fun portraying their character too. It didn't seem to like self-serious and all that. I mean, they were all very, very good, but like you just see that it was just like joy in the performances too. That was just really fun to watch.
And that's why I think audiences are responding so much.
Absolutely.
And I was surprised that it didn't get the day that we're recording this is the day after the Golden Globes were awarded, which we're going to talk about here for a minute. And I was surprised that Knives Out didn't end up winning, but clearly the Hollywood Foreign Press Association was all about Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I think was the big winner of the night. So,
well, to back up even before that, I was surprised it didn't even get a Best Screenplay nomination, because it's clearly like a front and center, like this is a script.
Yeah, and I think it will have a chance of getting nominated for the Oscars for that.
I think so, too.
I think at the Golden Globes, since they only do 5 nominations, they don't do like adapted and original. There's just 5, so I think it's
comedy and drama too.
Yeah, you're right. You'd think that they would do. They separate the acting and the pictures out, but they only have 1 for script
and screenplay.
Kind of bizarre.
Well, and director too, but you know.
Yeah. Yes, and supporting actors are all just lumped all together. But I'm just saying,
they
decide some categories not to do that, and other ones they do. So it's more competitive. And anyway, so Knives Out, I think next Monday when the Oscar nominations come out, it'll be interesting to see.
That's next Monday already?
Yeah, it's on the 13th.
Wow. Yeah,
yeah, it's coming up.
I'm losing all concept of time nowadays. I don't know what's wrong with my brain.
It's coming up.
But
the other films that were, the big winners of last night, or actually, I'm going to talk about kind of the big loser of the night, which was surprising that The Irishman didn't get anything. I was expecting The Irishman to get a little love from the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, but I think that there is a little bit of maybe the Netflix. It might be more of a handicap than we think it is when it comes to winning awards.
It could be. I mean, so that does give you that sweet spot of like, oh no, we nominated it for a bunch.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Sorry,
just no one wanted to actually
didn't work out that way.
Mm-hmm, precisely. But the upset win of the night was for 1917, which is my number 2 movie of this last year of 2019. So I was very happy to see that it won of the films that were nominated for the Golden Globe for Best Drama. I think 1917 was the strongest film, so it certainly deserved to win.
I thought you were going to say the biggest upset of the night was a plant-based diet that was served to all the people that were in attendance at the Hollywood Foreign Press Association.
No,
dinner.
I love that. Someone, one of my friends was over, was aware that they were having an all vegan menu at the awards, and they said, "Oh, do you think Ricky Gervais is going to be making fun of that?" And I said, "Well, he's vegetarian himself, so probably not." But
it's also Ricky Gervais, so probably because when you're given low hanging fruit or a softball thrown at you, you're going to hit it.
But then he didn't. Yeah, so he didn't though, because I was like, yeah, no, he didn't. He didn't want to belittle a cause that he believes in. I guess he was too busy, taking down the big shots, not picking on the vegan diet.
Well, as you said, the big upset was, well, the upsets usually come in the main category. So when you have something that's trending so strongly in the Best Picture nominees for drama at the Golden Globes, you had The Two Popes, Marriage Story, Joker, Irishman, 1917. It seemed the betting odds seemed to be on The Irishman, which is what I was cheering for, but I also haven't seen 1917 yet. So that becomes the big upset of the night. And if you're in the marketing department for 1917, you have to just be high-fiving when that happens because you're like, yes, because like the next weekend after you win that major award, a major indicator for the rest of award season, your movie's going to hit theaters as if there already wasn't a lot of anticipation for this new film. So 1917 is the first of the new films opening this week at the theater. It is co-written and directed by Sam Mendes, who also won Best Director a couple days ago at the Golden Globes. 1917, as the name indicates, is at the height of the First World War. Two young British soldiers are given a seemingly impossible mission. In a race against time, they must cross enemy territory and deliver a message that will stop a deadly attack on hundreds of soldiers, including one of the soldiers' own brother. So that's some pretty serious motivation.
Blake, pick a man, bring your kit.
I hoped today might be a good day. Hope is a dangerous thing.
You have a brother in the 2nd Battalion.
Yes, sir.
They're walking into a trap. Your orders are to deliver a message calling off tomorrow morning's attack. If you fail, it will be a massacre.
Let's talk about this for a minute.
Why?
We've got orders to cross here.
That is the German front line.
Hold on! If we're not clever about this, no one will get to your brother. I will.
Now, Dave, as you mentioned, this was your number 2 of 2019.
Yes.
I think you already mentioned it on their Best of the Year show, but this screams theatrical experience.
100%. Yeah, it is a movie that needs to be seen on the big screen, which, as Sam Mendes was accepting, I can't remember if it was his directing award or when he was up there talking when it won Best Picture, kind of explaining that this is a film that was made to be seen on the big screen. This isn't a movie made to be watched on your TV at home, and it wasn't made to certainly watch on your phone. It is definitely a film that is meant to be seen on the big screen. It is, an epic kind of film with just edge of your seat suspense. It is just so well done. It is shot as if it's a single take. It is not in real time though, so there's some time, constraints. I think the actual events of the film take place like over a whole night, but the movie's only like 2 hours long. So it's not real time, but it is one kind of like in Birdman, they kind of fake the seamless shots, but there are long sequences that it is like one continuous flow of action, and it is just an impressive achievement. I can absolutely see why he won Best Director. I would still like to see, Jung Boon-ho get it, but I'm totally fine with Sam Mendes winning because it's a really impressive film.
Is this the first time he has written as well? Because I don't remember him doing writing before. I know he did. He has another war movie with Jarhead, which is a very different kind of war movie. But I think this might be one of his first time he's writing too, which is interesting to see someone who, because he also came from like the stage as directing. He didn't go right from film school and to start making films. He has a lot of experience with actors in the stage and live theater. And then to see someone who goes into like James Bond for a couple movies, then does this gigantic, World War I epic, that is interesting to me that it's a exercising the command of a whole different medium that isn't where he started out from. But
well, I was going to say, I think like having made Skyfall, now you understand why kind of where he went from American Beauty to this, what I mean? It's so he developed, skills as a filmmaker making this, kind of one of the best James Bond movies of all time. Obviously he knows how to direct an action sequence, but this is not just an action sequence. This is like a non-stop action sequence in a way. So it's very impressive.
The as you mentioned with like the whole, we needed a better word for it, that it's one take but not really one take, but it's not, I don't want to use the word gimmick because it's not a gimmick. It's natural to the story.
They are still, they are pushing it as a
one take,
but that's, it's a fake one take. How about that?
But is it the one where like I think we mentioned it on the year-end wrap-up show, but it's not like the rope thing where all of a sudden like it's panic, zoom in on like something dark, then zoom back out so you know where the edits are? Like how seamless does this feel to you when you're watching it?
It's very seamless. There's only one time like because I was kind of being mindful of what I think that first opening scene is like a legitimate like uninterrupted 10-minute take or something like that.
Yeah.
And there was one kind of wipe past something like when they go back, I'm like, oh well, that's where they probably hid the cut. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or maybe not. You know what I mean?
Right.
It could have not been that. But it's hard to say because it's so seamless and you're so engrossed in the movie, you're not sitting there thinking about stuff like that. You're thinking about what's happening now and oh my God, this is so intense. So.
That's what happens when you have like the film geek brain going and you're like, I think that might be a cut right there. And you're like, just enjoy the movie.
Yeah, just enjoy the movie. So the other film that we're opening this week is Just Mercy, written and directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. And this is based on the true story of world-renowned civil rights defense attorney Bryan Stevenson, who works to free a wrongly condemned death row prisoner.
Tell me everything that happened. The first time I visited death row, I wasn't expecting to meet somebody the same age as me. From a neighborhood just like ours. Could have been me, Mama.
But what you're doing is gonna make a lot of people upset.
You always taught me to fight for the people who need the help the most. Your life is still meaningful, and I'm gonna do everything possible to keep them from taking it. You don't know what you're into down here in Alabama when you're guilty from the moment you're born.
God.
Mr. McMillan.
We done here.
Mr. McMillan, please.
I was just about to give up when I got a call from a Harvard lawyer looking to start a legal center for inmates on death row. I was in before he even offered me the job.
You the lawyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for driving all the way out here. Most lawyers barely make time to call.
I can't believe you talked to all my people and said you're gonna fight for me. I did. It mean a lot.
If you go digging in those wounds, you're gonna be making a lot of people very unhappy.
When people care about a thing that much, they'll do anything to get what they want.
When I first learned about all this, it was like looking at a river full of drowning people and not having any way of helping them.
Being based on a true story definitely helps because there's been no shortage of freeing a wrongly imprisoned death row inmate. Mm-hmm. It's obviously a lot of different documentaries over the years have taken this case, but this is the true story of Bryan Stevenson, who in this particular movie is played by Michael B. Jordan, and just has like that fresh-faced, right out of college, I'm gonna wanting to do good in the world, and goes off and actually does that rather than taking some sort of a corporate lawyer job or something where the money is in law. Actually goes out and works to better society around him. It's also the director. I know you were a fan of Short Term 12.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite films of that year, and actually the film that sort of put Brie Larson on the map was Short Term 12. And I remember whenever that was opening here at the Cedar Lee, it was a little distributor that didn't have any budget, so I was like doing the press and PR for it. And I remember like setting up, Brie Larson to be on WCPN to do like an interview on there. And it's like, now I think we'd have a hard time getting Brie Larson to do.
I would think so,
But so I mean, obviously she's an amazingly talented actress that this director helped, launch the career of. That was the film that really made everybody pay attention to her. And it's still it's just a great movie. And I haven't seen Just Mercy yet, but I'm anxious to see it because I've been a fan of his other work. So.
What's also she's stuck with him because she was in The Glass Castle, which she did a couple years ago that played at Cedar, and is now in Just Mercy as well. So I always find that really good because it makes me feel happy that that means they got along on set. That means this isn't some sort of like on-set tyrant, director who's doing a new Kubrick or something like that, where like nobody will ever work with that person again.
Right. And of course, the other performer in this film that we need to talk about is Jamie Foxx, who is playing the death row inmate.
Yeah.
Oscar winner Jamie Foxx, who, again, this film doesn't seem to have the kind of awards buzz going into like Oscar season here that I think some people expected it to have after Toronto, because it got great reviews out of Toronto. And people were kind of sure that Jamie Foxx was going to be, a front runner for supporting actor. And he still may be, because we haven't seen what the Oscar nominations are, but it was a little surprised that the film was shut out at the Golden Globes.
Was it? So, it definitely screened in time to be considered in this case, but the general release for it, similar to 1917 and to a certain extent, where like you said, once it comes out, if there is a lot of public support for it, people are like, holy cow, like people really need to pay attention to this one. You never know how that can sway the Academy voters. So
yeah, just both of their release dates, they both opened up in limited release over the holidays in New York and LA, and then they're expanding nationally on January 10th in anticipation of Oscar nominations coming out on the 13th. So obviously the studio felt like this is our awards contender. We're positioning this as, one of our strongest films of the year.
Right.
And that says something about it. So, I mean, it has a certain level of quality and pedigree that certainly you need to pay attention to, and is getting great reviews. So I'd encourage people to come out and check it out themselves.
Cool. We'll be right back with the special events coming up this week here at the theater. Well, special events are a bigger and bigger portion of the modern theatrical programming environment, so we want to keep you up to date on what special events are coming up each week at the theater.
And this week we have our continuing Met Opera Live in HD series. This week it is Alan Berg's Wozzeck, and that is going to be playing Saturday, January 11th at 12:55 p.m. That's the live presentation. And then there's an encore presentation on Wednesday, January 15th at 1 p.m., and that is starring baritone Peter Mattei in the title role.
The Melt Barn Grilled series chugs right along in 2020 with our monthly showings of The Room. It is screening Saturday, January 11th at 10 p.m.
And then we have Fathom Events and G-Kids presenting Weathering to You. This is a fan event preview. It'll be at the Cedar Lee on Wednesday, January 15th at 8 p.m., playing in a subtitled version. And then at Chagrin Cinemas, it's going to be playing on Wednesday, January 15th at 7 p.m. dubbed, and then on Thursday, January 16th at 8 p.m. So there's 2 shows at Chagrin, 1 show at the Cedar Lee. This is the new film from director Makoto Shinkai, and he is the creator behind the critically acclaimed film Your Name, which we played here at the Cedar Lee a couple years ago, and was on a lot of people's top 10 list that year. So he's a great animation director.
It was also like the biggest movie, I think, in Japan that year, period. Yeah. Like, nobody cared that it was anime or anything. It was just amazing.
Yep.
And there's always been those Hollywood rumors ever since then that it was going to get the live-action remake here. I feel like J.J. Abrams or some director was, like, kind of toying around with that for a little bit there. But please don't. Just stick with Your Name and Weathering with You. National Theater Live presents All My Sons Thursday, January 16th at 7 p.m. This is a new production starring Sally Field and Bull Pullman, heading over to England to star in National Theater's production of All My Sons.
And I believe that might be coming to Broadway soon, so this is a chance to see the production before it's on Broadway, or it might already be on Broadway. I can't remember, but there's blackout dates for this production in like the New York, New Jersey area. Like, you're not allowed to play at certain times because of that. So we're outside of that blackout period since we're in Ohio.
All right. So. Well, come see the original production then.
Exactly.
Now, if you're a regular listener and are wondering where our Cedar Lee 3 picks are for this week, follow along with the links in the show notes or head on over to any of our social media accounts where we are posting this week our picks for Best Actress of 2019. We're kind of going through all the top award categories in the build-up to the Oscars, which are coming up very quickly now because I am losing track of time as the weeks go by. The Oscars will be here before we know it. So this week, we're doing Best Actress. If you head over while you're on our social media accounts, we've been doing Best Foreign Language Film. We did Best Documentary. So you can see all the different picks that we've got going on the social media accounts for the Cedar Lee Theater. And join us again next week when, as of right now, we will be discussing the new films Invisible Life and Three Christs. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedar Lee Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedar Lee Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review, or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.